For more on today's arguments and their potential impact, let's bring in ABC News Supreme Court contributor Kate Shaw, also Florida State law professor Mary Ziegler, who specializes in the legal history of abortion rights. Mary, let's start with you. The case centers on viability of a fetus, its likelihood to survive outside the womb. Let's talk about the significance of that.
Right. So the Supreme Court in Roe and the cases following it have recognized a right to choose abortion until viability. And Mississippi's law kicks in at 15 weeks, which is well before viability. Although the time of viability can vary by pregnancy or even by hospital, it's well after 15 weeks. What that means is that for the Supreme Court to side with Mississippi in this case, it either has to say that there's no right to choose abortion or that the viability line was wrong. And that could open a Pandora's box. Even if the court doesn't want to admit that Roe v. Wade is entirely gone, it's going to have to potentially replace viability with something or fundamentally change what Roe v. Wade stands for.
And Kate, you know, I ask you this question every single time, but we've got to give the background and the context. Let's talk about how you expect each side to argue this case.
Sure, Kira. So, Mississippi, as Mary alluded to, is basically making two arguments. One, they're asking the court directly to overturn Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey and hold that the Constitution doesn't protect a right to choose abortion. They have a fallback argument, which is this viability argument, which is basically, even if the Constitution may protect some right to abortion, the line that the court drew, in particular in the 92 decision, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, basically saying that states couldn't prohibit abortion outright prior to viability should be discarded, giving states much more latitude to regulate and indeed to prohibit abortion at much earlier stages. So I think we know what Mississippi will argue. And the lawyer representing the lone clinic that remains in Mississippi is arguing that the court should retain Roe versus Wade, that the standard is well grounded in the Constitution. The Constitution protects liberty, including, the right to choose when and whether to become a parent at all, and that the principle of stare decisis, that the court requires some special justification before overruling a prior case, requires the court to adhere to what it has said and said again and again in cases like Roe and Casey, reaffirming the right to choose abortion. We should say the federal government is also in the case, arguing on behalf or on the side of the clinic, also, underscoring the position that the court should not revisit Roe and Casey and should reaffirm the right to abortion. So those are the key arguments that we will see play out. And, obviously we'll all be watching very closely to see how the justices respond to the arguments that they hear this morning.
Indeed. And Kate, you mentioned Mississippi. Mary, why don't we follow up? The Mississippi law bans abortions after 15 weeks without any exception for rape or incest. Is this part of the trend now?
It is, yeah. I mean, the anti-abortion movement has always been opposed on principle to exceptions for rape and incest because they seem to conflict with the idea that a fetus or unborn child is a person, which is the movement's position. But until recently, they felt that it was too politically toxic to actually advocate for bans without rape and incest. And in part, what you see essentially is that the movement believes that the Supreme Court will sign off on whatever anti-abortion lawmakers want, including laws without no exception for rape and incest, even though popular opinion on rape or incest really hasn't changed. There's supermajority support, even among Republicans actually support rape or incest exceptions as well. So this is really simply about conservative states and anti-abortion activists believing that this is a Supreme Court that will give the anti-abortion movement what it wants, and that there's no need to hide anymore what that actually looks like.
So, Kate, what happens if the court sides with Mississippi, and how quickly would abortion actually be made illegal?
Well, so it depends a lot on how broadly the court would write an opinion, essentially upholding the Mississippi 15-week abortion ban. If it chooses to essentially jettison Roe and Casey outright, hold that the Constitution doesn't protect the right to choose abortion, many states north of 20 would either immediately or in very quick order begin enforcing laws that prohibit abortion outright or in nearly all circumstances. So that's close to half the states. There are a number of other states, maybe as many as 5 to 10, that might take similar steps, again, either really reducing or eliminating access to legal abortion. So look, we already have a patchwork of abortion access in this country. Some states have pretty substantial access to abortion, and many states, even against the backdrop of Roe and Casey, have very limited access to abortion. But that would only accelerate. So you would have sort of deserts of reproductive healthcare access, states or groups of states where women could not access legal abortion and would need to seek other means to terminate pregnancies or travel to states in which abortion remained legal. If the court takes a more, somewhat more middle ground approach, doesn't overrule Roe and Casey outright, but does throw out this viability line, I think states would begin experimenting with just how restrictive they could be with respect to, limiting abortion, moving the, time earlier and earlier, a 12-week, a 10-week, an 8-week ban. So I think that would leave things in a state of more uncertainty, but either way, certainly drastically reduced access to abortion in this country.
Well, this is quite a historical day, and we'll be following it until the end of the afternoon. Kate Shaw, Mary Ziegler, appreciate both. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.